worked late that Thursday because Mrs. Henderson needed deep tissue therapy for her chronic shoulder pain, and I refused to rush sessions just to stick to arbitrary closing times. By the time I flipped the sign on the door of Serenity Wellness to closed and dimmed the lights, darkness had already settled over downtown. I gathered used towels into the laundry basket, wiped down the massage table with lavender-scented cleaner, and checked my phone. 7:43. Jenna had texted me an hour ago about drinks, but I'd been elbow-deep in muscle knots, 26 years old, and my Friday nights consisted of declining social invitations because I'd rather reorganize essential oil bottles. Pathetic didn't begin to cover it, but building a reputation took sacrifice. Serenity Wellness occupied a narrow storefront, wedged between a Vietnamese restaurant and an accountant's office on Lexington Street, 3 blocks from the financial district. The location brought steady traffic during lunch hours, business people desperate for relief from desk posture and stress headaches. I'd worked here for 2 years, building clientele slowly, saving every spare dollar toward opening my own therapeutic spa. The dream kept me going through double shifts and demanding customers who treated massage therapists like servants instead of licensed healthcare professionals. I locked the front door and headed toward the back office to grab my jacket when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost declined, but something made me answer. Serenity Wellness. This is Camilla. I need an appointment tonight. Immediately. The voice was male, deep, with an accent I couldn't quite place. Not Spanish. Maybe Italian. I'll pay triple your standard rate. I glanced at the clock. Sir, we're actually closed for the evening. I could schedule you for tomorrow morning if... Triple the rate, he repeated, as if I hadn't understood the first time. Cash payment. 1 hour. I have your address. Red flags waved frantically in my mind. Strange man calling after hours, offering excessive money, already knowing where I worked. Every instinct screamed to politely decline and hang up. But triple rate meant nearly $400 for a single session. That was half my monthly rent. That was 2 weeks of groceries. That was a significant deposit into my spa fund. Give me 20 minutes to prepare the room, I heard myself say. The door will be unlocked. He ended the call without another word. I stood there holding my phone, wondering what kind of desperation made me agree to see a stranger alone at night. The practical kind, apparently. The kind fueled by student loan statements and a lease renewal notice that came with a rent increase I couldn't afford. I pushed the worry aside and got to work. Fresh sheets on the table, new towels warming in the cabinet, adjusting the lighting to that perfect dim glow that encouraged relaxation. I lit 3 candles, lavender and eucalyptus, and started the ambient music playlist through the small speaker system. The room looked professional, inviting, safe. Through the front window, I noticed the sky had shifted from black to something heavier. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Within minutes, water began streaking down the glass in thick rivulets. Perfect weather for questionable life choices. Exactly 20 minutes after his call, headlights cut through the downpour. A vehicle pulled up directly in front. Sleek and dark. I couldn't make out the model through the rain. But even from inside, I could tell it cost more than everything I owned combined. The driver's door opened. A man stepped out into the storm without an umbrella, seemingly unconcerned about the deluge soaking his clothes. He moved with purpose toward my door. I unlocked it as he reached for the handle. Water dripped from his dark hair, ran down the sharp planes of his face. He was tall, maybe 6'2", with broad shoulders that filled out his black shirt in a way that suggested either dedicated gym time or manual labor. His eyes caught me first, though. Light brown, almost amber in the candlelight, scanning the space with the kind of attention that missed nothing. No scars marked his face, just strong features and a jawline that could cut glass. Thank you for accommodating the late request. He stepped inside, bringing the scent of expensive cologne mixed with rain. I'm Lucas. Camilla. I locked the door behind him, suddenly hyper-aware that we were alone in a locked building at night. Just Lucas. Just Lucas. He pulled his wallet from his back pocket, extracted 6 crisp $100 bills and held them out. Will this suffice? I took the money with fingers that wanted to tremble. $600. Twice what he'd promised. That's more than triple the rate, Consider it an apology for the inconvenience. His gaze held mine for a moment longer than necessary before he glanced toward the treatment room. Shall we? I led him to the massage room, explained the standard procedures, pointed out where to hang his clothes and how to position himself on the table. I'll give you a few minutes to get situated. Just lie face down and cover yourself with the sheet. I'll knock before entering. He nodded once, already unbuttoning his shirt. I stepped out quickly and closed the door. In the small hallway, I leaned against the wall and took 3 deep breaths. This felt wrong. Not dangerous exactly, but significant in a way I couldn't articulate. The money in my hand proved real, though. $600 bills that could solve immediate problems and fund a week of comparative comfort. I couldn't afford moral qualms about cash from mysterious late-night clients. I knocked softly. Ready? Yes. When I entered, Lucas lay face down as instructed, the white sheet draped across his lower back and hips. His shoulders were even more impressive uncovered, muscles defined in ways that spoke of serious physical training. Old bruises marked his ribs, faded to yellowish green. His hands rested at his sides, and I noticed scarring across his knuckles, the kind that came from repeated impact. Not a desk job, then. I warmed oil between my palms and started with his upper back, working the trapezius muscles with firm pressure. He was tense everywhere. Muscles locked tight enough to restrict movement. I worked methodically, finding trigger points and releasing them, using techniques that should have brought at least some audible relief. Lucas remained silent, breathing steady, never flinching even when I applied deep pressure to obviously painful knots. You carry a lot of tension here, I said quietly, working my thumbs along his spine. What do you do for work? I manage various business interests. His voice was slightly muffled against the face cradle. It's demanding, vague non-answer. I'd expected nothing less. I continued working, moving to his shoulder blades, finding resistance there too. Whoever Lucas was, whatever he did, it kept him wound tight as a spring. Minutes passed in silence, broken only by the ambient music and the storm outside intensifying. When I reached his lower back, he finally made a sound, a low exhale that might have been relief. I found a particularly stubborn knot near his right hip and pressed into it, using my body weight for leverage. Touch it again. His words were soft but unmistakable. Slower. I froze, hands still on his skin. The request could have been purely therapeutic, a client asking for technique adjustment. But the way he said it, the subtle shift in his breathing, suggested layers I didn't want to examine too closely. I applied pressure again, deliberately slowing my movements, working the muscle group with careful attention. He made that sound again, deeper this time. Not pain, something else entirely. I finished the session in professional silence, maintaining boundaries even as awareness crackled in the space between us. When the hour ended, I stepped out to let him dress. My hands shook slightly as I washed oil from them in the small sink. This was fine. This was just a client who'd needed late-night therapy and had the money to make it happen. Nothing more. Lucas emerged fully dressed, his wet hair pushed back from his face. He looked composed, relaxed in a way he hadn't been when he'd arrived. "Same time next Thursday?" he asked. I hadn't expected him to want a standing appointment. "I usually close at 7 on Thursdays. I'll call ahead. Compensate accordingly for the late hour." He moved toward the door, then paused with his hand on the handle. "You're very skilled at what you do, Camilla. I appreciate discretion as much as expertise. Discretion is part of the service." He smiled then, just a slight curve of his mouth that transformed his severe features into something almost warm. Good. Then he was gone, disappearing into the storm as quickly as he'd appeared. Through the window, I watched the expensive car pull away, taillights vanishing into the rain-soaked night. I locked the door and leaned against it, still holding $600 in cash and wondering what I'd just agreed to. The money felt heavier than it should, weighted with implications I couldn't quite name. Lucas wasn't like my other clients. He moved differently, spoke differently, carried himself with a certainty that suggested authority I hadn't earned in my 26 years. I counted the bills again. Real. All of it real. I tucked the money into my wallet, blew out the candles, and locked up for the night. My apartment was only 4 blocks away, walkable even in the downpour. I pulled my jacket over my head and stepped into the storm. Water soaked through my shoes immediately. I walked quickly, head down, trying not to think about amber eyes and cryptic statements about discretion. Just a client. A generous client who appreciated good work and was willing to pay for it. Nothing suspicious about that. Except, I didn't believe it. Not really. Something about Lucas suggested complications I was better off avoiding. But $600 sat in my wallet, and he'd already scheduled his next appointment, and I'd already committed to seeing him again. The rain poured harder as I reached my building, an old walk-up that had seen better decades. I climbed 3 flights of stairs to my studio apartment, unlocked the door, and stood dripping on the hardwood floor. My space was small, but mine, decorated with thrift store finds and bargain plants that somehow stayed alive despite my irregular schedule. A futon doubled as couch and bed. A tiny kitchen occupied one corner. The bathroom was barely large enough to turn around in. But the rent was manageable mostly, and the location was convenient. I changed into dry clothes and made chamomile tea I didn't really want. My phone showed messages from Jenna, asking about drinks, expressing concern when I didn't respond. I texted back a quick apology, blamed a late client, promised to catch up tomorrow. She sent back a string of eye-rolling emojis but didn't push. Sitting on my futon with hot tea, I pulled out the cash again. $600 for an hour of legitimate therapeutic work. Nothing wrong with that. Plenty of clients paid premium rates for quality service, but most clients didn't make my pulse race with a simple phrase. Most clients didn't look at me like they could see through practiced professionalism to the desperation underneath. I folded the bills carefully and tucked them into the envelope where I kept savings for my spa dream. One session with Lucas had contributed more than 3 regular sessions. If he really did want standing weekly appointments, that alone could accelerate my timeline by months. The rationalization felt thin, even to me. But I clung to it anyway, because the alternative was admitting that I'd felt something when he'd spoken those words in the dimly lit room. Something that had nothing to do with professional massage therapy and everything to do with the dangerous attraction I'd recognized the moment he'd walked through my door. I finished my tea and crawled into bed, listening to the storm rage outside. Sleep took a long time to find, and when it did, I dreamed of amber eyes and hands that knew exactly where to apply pressure to make someone break. Lucas came back the following Thursday, precisely on time like clockwork. Then the Thursday after that. By the 3rd week, I'd started preparing the room for him without needing the courtesy call. I knew he preferred the temperature slightly cooler than most clients, that he responded better to firm pressure than gentle strokes, that silence worked better for him than ambient music. These details accumulated naturally, the way professional knowledge builds over repeated sessions. What didn't feel professional was the way my pulse quickened when his car pulled up outside, or how I found myself thinking about him during sessions with other clients, comparing their tension patterns to his, wondering what caused the particular way his shoulders locked up. I told myself this was normal therapeutic curiosity. I'd worked with dozens of clients over 2 years. Some stuck in your mind more than others. Jenna noticed something was different. She'd started helping out at Serenity 3 afternoons a week, handling scheduling and front desk duties while I focused on treatments. Thursday evening of the 4th week, she cornered me in the back office while I was reviewing supply orders. "So, who's the mystery man?" She perched on the edge of my desk, painted fingernails tapping against her coffee mug. "The one who comes in late every Thursday and pays in cash." I didn't look up from the inventory list. Just a client who prefers evening appointments. A client who shows up in a car that probably costs 6 figures. A client you get all twitchy about when 7 o'clock approaches. She leaned forward, brown eyes gleaming with curiosity. "Come on, Cam. Give me something. Is he hot? Please tell me he's hot. I don't notice that kind of thing about clients." The lie tasted bitter. "It's unprofessional. You're human, not a robot. And based on the glimpse I got when he walked past last week, he's definitely worth noticing." She waggled her eyebrows. Tall, dark, mysterious vibe. Very Mafia romance novel. Her words struck closer to truth than she could know. I'd been doing my own research since that first session, trying to place Lucas's accent, his demeanor, the way he moved like violence was always an option. Casual internet searches had turned up nothing under just his first name, obviously. But I'd started paying attention to local news, scanning articles about business dealings and real estate transactions. That's when I'd found the name, Lucas Ricchetti, owner of Ricchetti Properties, which managed commercial real estate throughout the city. Legitimate business on the surface, but reading between the lines of news articles revealed a pattern. Properties in specific neighborhoods, always purchased through third parties, always cash deals, connections to restaurants that stayed open despite never seeming busy, warehouse acquisitions in the industrial district that housed mysterious operations. The deeper I dug, the clearer the picture became. Lucas Ricchetti wasn't just a businessman. He was connected, the kind of connected that came with euphemisms like business interests and community influence, the kind that made people speak carefully when his name came up. I should have stopped seeing him the moment I figured it out. Should have canceled his appointments, returned his money, maintained the safe professional distance between myself and anything remotely criminal. But I didn't. Couldn't. Because underneath the suspicion and wariness, fascination burned brighter than common sense. Earth to Camilla. Jenna waved her hand in front of my face. You completely zoned out. Sorry. I set down my pen. Just tired. It's been a long week. It's Wednesday. Exactly. She studied me with the kind of perception that came from a decade of friendship. Jenna and I had met in community college before I'd transferred to the massage therapy certification program. She'd stuck with business administration, graduated, then spent 2 years working corporate jobs she hated before I'd convinced her to help me build Serenity into something real. She knew me well enough to recognize when I was hiding something. Be careful, she said quietly. Whatever this is, whoever he is, just be careful. I wanted to reassure her that nothing was happening, that Lucas was just a client who paid well and required late sessions. But Jenna deserved better than comfortable lies. I will, I promised instead. She nodded and slid off the desk, coffee mug in hand. I'm heading out. Lock up when you're done tonight, yeah? After she left, I sat alone in the small office, listening to traffic sounds filter through the window. 26 years old, and I was apparently incapable of making smart choices when it came to dangerous men with amber eyes and secrets measured in cash payments. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. But I recognized it by now. Lucas never saved my contact information, always called from different numbers. Paranoia or protocol, I couldn't tell. Serenity Wellness. I'll be 10 minutes late tonight. His voice carried background noise, voices speaking in rapid Italian, the kind of heated discussion that sounded like argument. Unavoidable delay. That's fine. The room will be ready. He hung up without goodbye. I'd stopped expecting pleasantries. Lucas communicated with efficiency, never wasting words on empty courtesy. It should have been off-putting. Instead, I found it oddly refreshing, compared to clients who filled sessions with nervous chatter about nothing. 10 minutes late turned into 20. I sat in the treatment room, candles already lit, wondering if he'd cancel entirely. Then I heard the front door, his familiar heavy footsteps, the way he moved through the space like he owned it. When he entered, I noticed the tension immediately. It radiated from him in waves, visible in the tightness around his mouth, the rigid set of his shoulders. Whatever had delayed him had left him wound tighter than usual. Rough day? I asked as he began unbuttoning his shirt. Something like that. He paused, hands stilling on the buttons. Do you follow local news, Camilla? The question caught me off guard. Sometimes. Why? There was an incident today. Warehouse fire in the industrial district. 3 people injured, 1 critically. His eyes found mine, searching for something I couldn't name. It'll be on the evening news if you're curious. My stomach dropped. That's terrible. Do they know what caused it? These things happen in that neighborhood. Old buildings, faulty wiring, people cutting corners on safety regulations. He finished with the buttons, shrugged out of his shirt. The authorities will investigate. But fires like this rarely lead to meaningful conclusions. The careful neutrality in his voice told me everything. This wasn't random disaster. This was connected to him somehow. Whether as victim or perpetrator, I couldn't tell. And he was testing me, watching to see how I'd react to the implicit revelation. I chose my words carefully. I'm sorry that happened. I hope the injured people recover. So do I. He draped his shirt over the chair and moved to the table. Shall we begin? The session that followed felt different from previous ones. Lucas's tension ran deeper than muscle knots, manifesting in ways that didn't respond to normal techniques. I worked harder, applying more pressure, finding trigger points and working them until he finally started to release some of the coiled energy. Halfway through, my hands found a new scar on his lower back, puckered tissue that hadn't been there 2 weeks ago. I traced the edges carefully, feeling the heat of inflammation still present. "This is fresh," I said. "What happened?" "Minor accident. Nothing serious. It needs proper care." "Have you been applying antibiotic ointment?" When I remember. I stepped back and moved to my supply cabinet, pulling out medical-grade wound care products. "I'm going to clean it properly and dress it. This kind of injury can get infected easily." "That's not necessary." "Yes, it is. Stay still." For a moment, I thought he might argue. Lucas didn't strike me as someone who accepted orders easily. But he remained quiet while I cleaned the wound with antiseptic, applied ointment, and covered it with sterile bandaging. His back muscles tensed under my hands, but he made no sound of pain. The part of me that counted hours, charted progress notes, and filed receipts under Serenity Wellness wanted to keep this clean. The part of me with both hands on his skin knew we had already crossed that line and chosen each other anyway. There, I disposed of the used materials. "Keep it clean and dry for the next few days. Change the dressing twice daily." "Thank you." His voice was softer than usual. "You're very thorough. It's my job to notice these things. Is it your job to care whether your clients follow medical advice?" I paused, hands resting lightly on his shoulders. "I care about doing things correctly. That's not what I asked." He was right. I'd crossed some line from professional detachment into actual concern. The realization should have alarmed me. Instead, it just felt inevitable. "Fine," I admitted. "I care whether you take care of yourself." "Happy?" Surprisingly, yes. The rest of the session passed in comfortable silence. When I finished, Lucas dressed while I cleaned oil from my hands and reset the room for tomorrow's clients. By the time I emerged, he was waiting in the hallway, envelope of cash already in hand. "Same time next week?" he asked. "I'll be here." He moved toward the door, then stopped. "Camilla, what I said about the fire, about staying informed regarding local news. I understand. Discretion, right? More than that." He turned to face me fully. "Be aware of your surroundings. This city has complications most people don't notice until they're already involved." The warning chilled me more than any explicit threat could have. "Are you saying I'm in danger?" "I'm saying that association carries weight, even peripheral association." His gaze held mine with uncomfortable intensity. "People notice patterns. They notice who comes and goes from certain locations. Then maybe you should find another massage therapist." "Maybe, but I won't." He reached out, fingers brushing my wrist so briefly I might have imagined it. "Just be careful. Pay attention. Trust your instincts." Then he was gone, leaving me standing in the dimly lit hallway with a racing heart and a warning I didn't fully understand. I locked up mechanically, going through the familiar routine while my mind spun through implications I didn't want to examine too closely. Lucas Ricchetti had just confirmed what my research had suggested. He was dangerous. His world was dangerous. And by continuing to see him, I was stepping into that danger with eyes wide open. The smart move would be to cut ties immediately, to call tomorrow and cancel all future appointments, to scrub any record of his visits, to pretend these past 4 weeks had never happened. I could return his money if that made it cleaner, though something told me refusing Lucas wasn't that simple. Instead, I walked home through streets that felt different now, noticing things I'd overlooked before. The black sedan parked across from my building that I'd seen there twice this week. The man smoking outside the corner store who watched me pass with more attention than a casual glance required. The way certain cars drove by just slowly enough to make inventory of faces and locations. "Association carries weight," Lucas had said. "Even peripheral association." I climbed the 3 flights to my apartment and locked the door behind me, suddenly aware of how flimsy the security was. One cheap deadbolt between me and whatever complications existed in Lucas Ricchetti's world. My phone showed a text from Jenna, asking if I'd made it home safely. I sent back a quick affirmative, not trusting myself to talk to her tonight. Instead, I made tea and sat by the window, watching the street below. The black sedan was still there. As I watched, the driver's side window rolled down just far enough for me to see the ember glow of a cigarette. Someone was surveying my building. Maybe they'd been doing it for weeks and I'd simply never noticed. Lucas's warning echoed through my thoughts. People notice patterns. They notice who comes and goes. I was being watched. The question was whether it was Lucas's people keeping tabs on his associations or someone else tracking his movements through me. Either option terrified me in different ways. My savings envelope sat on the kitchen counter where I'd left it this morning. I pulled it out and counted the accumulated cash from Lucas's sessions. $2,400 over 4 weeks. More money than I'd saved in the previous 6 months. Blood money, maybe. Or insurance money. Currency that came with invisible strings I was only beginning to perceive. I could stop. Should stop. But even as I thought it, I knew I wouldn't. Because somewhere between that first session and tonight, curiosity had transformed into something far more complicated. I wanted to understand Lucas Richetti. Wanted to know what caused the scars and the tension and the careful way he moved through the world. Wanted to bridge the distance between the professional boundaries I maintained and the person he actually was. Dangerous thinking. The kind that got people hurt in ways that didn't heal as easily as physical wounds. But I'd never been particularly good at self-preservation when curiosity was involved. So I'd show up next Thursday at 7 and the Thursday after that, and I'd continue learning the contours of Lucas Richetti's secrets one session at a time, until either the truth emerged or the danger became too real to ignore. The sedan pulled away around midnight. I watched it disappear down the street, brake lights vanishing around the corner. But I kept watching anyway, kept searching shadows for movement that would tell me surveillance continued. Eventually, exhaustion won. I fell asleep on the futon still wearing street clothes, tea gone cold on the side table, phone clutched in one hand in case I needed to call for help that would probably never come. Lucas called on Tuesday afternoon, 2 days before our usual Thursday appointment. I was restocking the linen closet when my phone vibrated with the now familiar unknown number. I need to change our arrangement. His voice carried tension I'd learned to recognize. Starting this week, I'd like you to come to my property instead of meeting at Serenity. I nearly dropped the stack of towels I was holding. Your property? Lucas, I don't do house calls. It's not safe. You'll be compensated appropriately. $5,000 monthly, in addition to session fees. You'll have your own workspace, professional equipment, complete privacy. He paused. And substantially better security than your current location provides. $5,000. The number echoed in my head, scrambling rational thought. That was more than I made in a good month at Serenity, handed over just for being available to one client. Why the sudden change? I asked, moving into my office and closing the door, even though Jenna had already left for the day. Circumstances have shifted. I need more privacy than your studio can offer. And frankly, I'd prefer knowing exactly who has access to you during our sessions. The possessiveness in his statement should have alarmed me. Instead, it sent heat curling through my stomach. You'll also maintain your regular schedule at Serenity. This arrangement is for Thursday evenings only, and occasionally other times if needed. If needed? I repeated. That's vague. Intentionally so. My schedule isn't always predictable. Background noise filtered through the phone. Someone speaking urgently in Italian. Lucas responded in the same language, sharp and commanding, before returning to English. I need an answer, Camilla. Tonight. Every professional instinct screamed that accepting meant crossing a line I couldn't uncross. Going to a client's private residence, especially one with Lucas's connections, violated every safety protocol I'd been taught. But $5,000 monthly meant I could have my spa within a year instead of 5. Meant security I'd never experienced. Meant stepping deeper into whatever this was between us. I keep my regular clients at Serenity, I said slowly. Thursday evenings only, like you said. And I want the workspace agreement in writing. Done. I'll have my driver collect you Thursday at 7. Bring whatever supplies you need that aren't already provided. He ended the call before I could change my mind. I sat, staring at my phone, wondering when I'd become someone who negotiated with dangerous men in Italian about private appointments and monthly retainers. Jenna would lose her mind if I told her. My sister Megan would probably stage an intervention. Megan. I hadn't talked to my little sister in almost 2 weeks, too absorbed in my increasingly complicated situation with Lucas. She was finishing her sophomore year at State, majoring in environmental science, blissfully unaware that her older sister was making spectacularly questionable life choices. I made a mental note to call her this weekend. Make sure she was okay. Pretend everything in my life was normal. Thursday arrived too quickly. I spent the day at Serenity handling regular clients, going through familiar motions while my mind spun ahead to the evening. Jenna noticed my distraction during lunch, but when she asked, I blamed it on inventory stress and upcoming rent. Not entirely lies, just strategically incomplete truth. At 6:30, I changed into fresh clothes, black pants, and a charcoal sweater that felt more professional than my usual work attire. Packed my essential oils, favorite massage tools, the wound care supplies I'd been using on Lucas's various injuries. By 6:50, I was standing outside Serenity watching traffic, wondering if I should just lock up and go home, forget this whole arrangement. A black sedan pulled up precisely at 7. The driver stepped out, older man with silver hair, and the posture of someone with military background. He opened the rear door without speaking. I hesitated for 3 heartbeats before climbing in. The drive took 20 minutes, winding through downtown into residential areas that grew progressively wealthier. We finally turned onto a private road lined with mature trees, eventually reaching gates that opened automatically. Beyond them, Lucas's property sprawled across what had to be at least 5 acres. The house itself was modern architecture, all clean lines and glass, discreetly elegant rather than ostentatious. Security cameras tracked our progress up the curved driveway. I counted at least 4 guards positioned around the grounds, trying to appear casual, but failing. This wasn't a home. This was a fortress disguised as upscale real estate. The driver parked near the main entrance. Another man, younger, with the same alert bearing, appeared to escort me inside. He introduced himself as Vincent and explained that Mr. Ricchetti was finishing a meeting, but had prepared the workspace for my approval. The interior matched the exterior, sophisticated without being cold. Vincent led me through a foyer with marble floors into a corridor lined with what looked like original artwork. We stopped at a door near the rear of the house. When Vincent opened it, I forgot to breathe. The room was perfect. Professional massage table, better quality than mine at Serenity. Cabinet stocked with premium oils, lotions, supplies I'd mentioned preferring but could never justify purchasing. Lighting system with multiple settings. Sound system built into the walls. Temperature controls. Even a small attached bathroom for washing up between sessions. Mr. Ricchetti had our interior designer consult with several therapeutic spa owners. Vincent explained. If anything is incorrect or missing, please let him know. It's incredible, I managed. This must have cost... I stopped myself before finishing the thought. Commenting on cost felt inappropriate. He wanted you to be comfortable. I'll let him know you've arrived. Vincent left me alone to explore. I ran my hands over the massage table, testing the padding, the height adjustment mechanism. Everything was top tier. Lucas had either spent considerable time researching proper therapeutic equipment or paid someone very well to do it for him. Either way, the attention to detail unsettled me more than the obvious expense. Lucas appeared 10 minutes later, wearing black pants and a white dress shirt with sleeves rolled to his elbows. He looked tired, tension visible in the tightness around his eyes. "What do you think?" he asked, gesturing to the room. "It's better equipped than most professional spas I've seen. You didn't have to go to this trouble. I wanted you to have proper tools. Anything else you need, tell Vincent. He'll acquire it." He moved to the massage table, running one hand along the edge. "Thank you for agreeing to this arrangement. Thank you for the generous offer. Though I'm still not entirely sure why it was necessary." His jaw tightened. "There are people who've noticed our sessions at Serenity. People who might use that information in ways that create complications." "Complications?" I repeated. "You mean threats. Potential threats. I don't take chances with those under my protection. I'm not under your protection, Lucas. I'm your massage therapist." His gaze locked onto mine with uncomfortable intensity. You became under my protection the moment people started watching my patterns. Association creates responsibility, whether we intended it or not. The implication landed heavy in my chest. By continuing to see Lucas, I'd inadvertently made myself a target, or at least a point of interest, for whoever tracked his movements. And rather than distance himself to keep me safe, he'd pulled me closer, into his controlled environment where he could monitor potential threats. "Who's watching?" I asked quietly. "Business competitors. People who would leverage any perceived weakness." He turned away, moving toward the window that overlooked dark gardens. "I have rivals who don't share my boundaries regarding acceptable tactics, and they'd target me to get to you. Given the opportunity, yes." He looked back at me. "This isn't meant to frighten you. It's meant to keep you safe while we continue our professional relationship." Professional relationship. The phrase felt increasingly inadequate for whatever was developing between us. But acknowledging that meant confronting truths I wasn't ready to examine. "Should I be worried?" I asked instead. "Not while you're here. My security is comprehensive, and I've made it clear that anyone interfering with my personal arrangements would face severe consequences." The casual way he said it, the implicit violence in those consequences, should have terrified me. Instead, I felt perversely reassured. "Okay." I moved to the supply cabinet, examining the oils he'd stocked. "Then I guess we should begin." The session that followed felt different from all previous ones. Being in his space, surrounded by his things, with his security outside the door, transformed the dynamic in ways I couldn't quite articulate. Lucas relaxed faster, trusting the environment in ways he never had at Serenity. I worked through his chronic tension points, finding new areas of stress that suggested whatever business he managed was reaching critical pressure. Halfway through, my phone buzzed in my bag. I ignored it, focused on the work. It buzzed again, and again, 5 times in rapid succession. Lucas lifted his head from the face cradle. "You should check that." I wiped oil from my hands and retrieved my phone. 7 missed calls from Megan. My stomach dropped. My sister never called repeatedly unless something was seriously wrong. I answered her 8th attempt. "Megan? What's wrong?" "Cam." Her voice shook. "There are men here, at my apartment. They're saying they need to talk to you about someone named Lucas. They won't leave. They're just standing outside my door. And I don't know what to do." Ice flooded my veins. "Lock your door. Don't open it for anyone. I'm calling the police. They said if you call the police, they'll have to take alternative measures to establish contact." She was crying now, trying to muffle the sound. "What does that mean? Who are these people? Why are they looking for you?" Lucas was already off the table, phone pressed to his ear, speaking rapid Italian. He made eye contact with me, and I understood without words. This was exactly the complication he'd warned about. Someone had traced our connection and decided to apply pressure through my 20-year-old sister. "Megan, listen carefully." I forced my voice steady, despite the panic clawing up my throat. "Give me your exact address." While she read it out, I texted the same to Vincent and called campus security, logging a welfare check under her dorm number. If anyone was going to knock, it would be someone with a badge. On record. "Don't open the door for anyone except campus security or actual police. I'm handling this." She recited her address through tears. Lucas was already coordinating something with whoever was on his phone, still speaking Italian, but in tones that promised violence. He ended his call and looked at me. "My people will be there in 8 minutes. Campus is only 15 minutes from here." His voice was ice-cold calm. "The men outside her door will be removed. Quietly. Your sister won't be harmed." How do you know who they are? But even as I asked, I knew. Same people who'd been watching Serenity. Same business rivals he'd mentioned. They'd found my vulnerability and exploited it with surgical precision. The O'Sullivan family. He was already moving toward the door. Irish crew that's been pushing into territory they don't belong in. This is their way of sending a message. What kind of message? That they know my patterns. That they can reach people close to me whenever they choose. He stopped at the door. "Stay here. Vincent will remain outside. Don't leave this room until I tell you it's safe. I'm coming with you." "No, you're not." His tone left no room for argument. "If they're watching your sister's building, they're waiting to see how I respond. Bringing you would confirm exactly how important you are. Staying here protects both of you. He was gone before I could protest further. I sank onto the massage table, phone clutched in shaking hands, trying to explain to Megan that help was coming without explaining who was sending it, or why. She asked questions I couldn't answer. Finally, I just stayed on the line with her, listening to her frightened breathing, counting seconds until Lucas's people arrived. 7 minutes later, I heard her gasp. "Oh God, Cam, there are more men. They just came out of nowhere. They're talking to the guys at my door. It sounds like they're arguing. Stay inside. Lock everything. Don't look out the window." The sounds through the phone were muffled but tense. Male voices, aggressive but controlled. Then silence. Heavy, expectant silence. "They're gone," Megan whispered finally. "All of them. Just left." "What the hell is happening? Who were those people?" "I'll explain later. Are you okay? Did anyone try to hurt you?" "No. They just stood there." "But Cam, this is insane. Why would anyone threaten me to get to you? What have you gotten yourself into?" The question I'd been avoiding for weeks. What had I gotten myself into? And more importantly, how did I get both of us back out? "Pack a bag," I told her. "Enough for a few days. Someone will come get you within the hour. You're not staying there tonight." "Cam?" "Please, Megan, just trust me. I'll explain everything, I promise. But right now, I need you safe." She agreed, still confused and frightened, but trusting her older sister. After we hung up, I sat in that perfect therapeutic room surrounded by expensive equipment, realizing that Lucas had been right about everything. Association carried weight. People noticed patterns, and by continuing to see him, I'd painted a target on everyone I cared about. Lucas returned 40 minutes later, looking grim but satisfied. "Your sister is being collected now. Vincent will bring her here, where she'll stay until this situation is resolved." "Resolved how?" "The O'Sullivans need to understand that there are lines even they don't cross. I'll make that clear." The controlled fury in his voice suggested exactly how that message would be delivered. "Your sister will be safe here. You have my word. She's going to have questions. Then give her answers. Enough to satisfy her concern, but not enough to put her in additional danger." He moved closer. Close enough that I could smell expensive cologne and the faint copper scent of adrenaline. "I'm sorry, Camilla. This wasn't supposed to reach your family, but you knew it could. That's why you brought me here." "Yes, the honesty at least was something. What happens now?" "Now you stay here tonight. Both of you. Tomorrow we'll discuss longer-term arrangements." His hand lifted, fingers brushing my jaw in a gesture too intimate for our supposed professional relationship. "I protect what's mine, and whether you've accepted it yet or not, you're mine now." The declaration should have sparked outrage or fear. Instead, heat pooled low in my stomach, desire mixing dangerously with the adrenaline still flooding my system. I stepped back, creating necessary distance. "I need to call Jenna. Tell her I won't be opening Serenity tomorrow." "Already handled. Vincent contacted her an hour ago. Explained you have a family emergency." He smiled faintly at my expression. "I handle complications, Camilla. All of them." Before I could respond, Vincent knocked and entered. "Mr. Ricchetti, the guest has arrived." I rushed past both men, following Vincent to the foyer where Megan stood clutching an overnight bag, eyes wide as she took in the mansion's interior. When she saw me, she dropped the bag and threw herself into my arms. "Camilla, what is going on? Those men, and then these other men, and now this house." She pulled back, looking between me and Lucas, who'd followed me out. Understanding dawned across her features. "This is Lucas? The private client you've been seeing?" "Megan, it's complicated. I can see that." She didn't take her eyes off Lucas, assessing him with the protective suspicion only younger siblings mastered. "Are you the reason men were threatening me tonight?" "Indirectly, yes." Lucas didn't flinch from her accusation. "And I take full responsibility for ensuring it doesn't happen again. You'll stay here under security until the threat is eliminated." "Threat from who?" "Eliminated how?" Megan's voice rose. "Somebody better start explaining things or I'm calling the police and our parents." "Mom and Dad are dead," I reminded her quietly, and calling the police would only make this worse. Her face crumpled. For all her college sophistication, she was still just 20, still young enough to want simple answers to complicated situations. I guided her to a sitting room Vincent indicated, Lucas following at a respectful distance. Over the next hour, I explained what I could, editing liberally, but providing framework. Lucas owned businesses with competitors who played rough. By becoming his regular therapist, I'd inadvertently become visible to those competitors. Tonight's incident was an escalation, one Lucas was handling. Megan absorbed it all, anger gradually replacing fear. So you're dating a gangster? I'm not dating anyone. Lucas is my client. She looked at Lucas, then back at me, one eyebrow raised in perfect skepticism. Sure he is. Despite everything, I almost laughed. My baby sister, terrified an hour ago, now sitting in a mansion calling out my denial about the obviously complicated man currently providing us sanctuary. Lucas excused himself, promising that rooms were prepared for both of us. After he left, Megan grabbed my hands. He's dangerous, Cam. Like, actually dangerous. Those men tonight weren't playing around. I know. And you're still going to see him. It wasn't a question. She knew me well. I don't know what I'm going to do. But right now, we're here, we're safe, and that's what matters. She didn't look convinced, but exhaustion was winning. Vincent appeared to show her to a guest room. Before she left, she hugged me tight. Be careful, she whispered. Please. Alone in the opulent sitting room, I finally allowed myself to feel the weight of what had happened. Lucas's rivals had targeted my sister to send a message. Lucas had responded with precision and force, and I was now exactly where he'd warned I'd end up. Deep enough in his world that extraction looked increasingly impossible. My phone buzzed. Text from Lucas. Your room is ready when you need it. Top of the stairs. Second door on the left. Sleep well, Camilla. I climbed the stairs slowly, finding the room he'd indicated. It was beautiful, decorated in soft colors with a massive bed and attached bathroom. My overnight bag sat on a chair, collected from Serenity by someone on Lucas's staff. Everything anticipated, everything handled. I showered and changed into sleep clothes, exhaustion finally catching up with crisis. Before turning out the lights, I texted back, "Thank you for protecting her." His response came immediately. Always. That single word carried promises I wasn't ready to believe, but desperately wanted to. The explosion happened 3 weeks after Megan had returned to campus under heavy security that she pretended not to notice. 3 weeks of me splitting time between Serenity during the day and Lucas's property most evenings. 3 weeks of learning the rhythms of his world, meeting the people who worked for him, understanding the careful balance he maintained between legitimate business and everything else. I was finishing up with a regular client at Serenity when Jenna burst into my office, phone in hand, face pale. "Cam, turn on the news. Now." The footage showed smoke billowing from a warehouse in the industrial district, flames visible even in daylight. Emergency vehicles surrounded the building, while firefighters worked to contain the blaze. The news anchor reported 3 injuries, including one person in critical condition being airlifted to Mercy Hospital. My hands went numb. I knew that warehouse. Lucas had pointed it out during a drive 2 weeks ago. Mentioned it housed inventory for one of his import companies. Legal merchandise, he'd assured me. Though I'd learned to hear what he didn't say as much as what he did. "Is that one of his?" Jenna asked quietly. She'd figured out enough about Lucas over the past month to understand the general shape of things without knowing specifics. "I need to call him. Cam, if that's his place and someone got hurt, I need to call him," I repeated, already dialing the number he'd given me for emergencies. He answered on the first ring. "I'm fine. I wasn't there." Relief crashed through me so intensely I had to sit down. The news said someone's in critical condition. Thomas Santini. Good man. Been with me for 8 years. Wife and 2 kids. His voice was controlled, but I heard the fury underneath. He was inspecting a shipment when the device went off. Device? You mean a bomb? Yes. No hesitation. No attempt to soften it. The O'Sullivans are making their position clear. They want territory I won't give them, so they're escalating. I closed my eyes, trying to process. A man with a wife and kids was fighting for his life because of a war over territory, and power, and things I didn't fully understand. What are you going to do? What needs to be done? The coldness in his statement chilled me more than the words themselves. I'm sending Vincent to collect you. You're not staying at Serenity today. Lucas, I have 3 more clients scheduled. Cancel them. This is not negotiable, Camilla. His tone shifted into command mode, the voice I'd heard him use with his security team. They bombed my warehouse in broad daylight. That's a message that they're done being subtle. Everyone connected to me is now at elevated risk. He was right, much as I hated to admit it. Okay. Give me 20 minutes to reschedule. You have 10. Vincent is already en route. The line went dead. I looked at Jenna, who'd been listening to my side of the conversation with growing alarm. You need to close up for a few days, I told her. Tell people I have a family emergency. Don't come back here until I tell you it's safe. Cam, this is insane. You should call the police. Get protection. The police can't help with this. Just trust me, please. Go home, stay with friends, but don't come back to Serenity until you hear from me. She wanted to argue more. I could see it in her face. But she'd known me long enough to recognize when I'd made a decision. She grabbed her bag and keys. Call me every day or I'm calling the cops myself. Deal. Vincent arrived in under 10 minutes. The drive to Lucas's property felt longer than usual, tension radiating from the security team. When we arrived, I noticed twice as many guards as normal, all heavily armed, all on high alert. This wasn't just increased security. This was preparing for war. Lucas met me in the foyer, and the sight of him made my chest tighten. He looked exhausted. Dark circles under his eyes. Tension carved into every line of his face. Without thinking, I crossed the distance between us and wrapped my arms around him. He went rigid for a heartbeat before his arms came around me, pulling me close. We stood like that for several seconds, neither speaking, just holding on to something solid in the middle of chaos. Thomas is in surgery, he said finally, voice muffled against my hair. They think he'll make it, but the damage is extensive. Burns over 40% of his body. I pulled back enough to look at his face. I'm so sorry. This is my fault. I knew the O'Sullivans were getting aggressive, but I underestimated how far they'd go. His jaw clenched. That ends now. What does that mean? It means I'm done playing defensive. It means they declared war, and I'm going to finish it. He released me, stepping back, the vulnerable moment shuddering behind his usual control. You'll stay here until this is resolved. I've already had your things collected from your apartment. You what? Anger flared through concern. Lucas, you can't just move me in without asking. I can and I did. Your apartment building has minimal security. One locked door between you and anyone who wants access. That's unacceptable. He moved toward his office, expecting me to follow. I did, because arguing in the foyer felt pointless. Inside his office, he gestured to a chair while he moved behind his desk. The space was masculine and severe, all dark wood and leather, walls lined with books in Italian and English. A laptop sat open, multiple windows displaying what looked like security footage and financial reports. I'm not your prisoner, Lucas. No, you're under my protection. There's a difference. He leaned against the desk, arms crossed. Camilla, I need you to understand something. The people who did this today, they know about you. They know you matter to me. That makes you a target. I didn't ask to matter to you. His expression softened slightly. I know, but you do. And I'm not apologizing for that. He reached out, fingers brushing my jaw. I should have been more careful, should have kept more distance, but I'm a selfish man, and I wanted you anyway. The admission hung between us, honest and raw. I covered his hand with mine, turning to press my lips against his palm. This is complicated. Extremely. His thumb traced my lower lip. Are you afraid of me? I considered the question honestly. Sometimes. Not of you hurting me, but of what you're capable of. What you'll do to the people who did this. I'll do what's necessary to protect my people and end this threat. No hesitation, no apology. Does that answer frighten you? It should, but mostly I'm just worried about you. I stepped closer, closing the space between us. Promise me you'll be careful, that you won't do anything reckless. I promise to survive. That's the best I can offer. It would have to be. The next several hours passed in tense activity. Lucas spent most of his time on calls, speaking rapid Italian with various associates, coordinating responses I didn't fully understand. I retreated to the therapeutic room he'd set up, needing familiar routine to center myself. When he finally appeared in the doorway, it was past 8 o'clock. "Can you work on me?" he asked. "I need to think clearly, and right now my shoulders are locked up so tight I can barely move." I prepared the room while he undressed. When he lay face down on the table, I could see the tension immediately. His entire upper back was rigid, muscles bunched like steel cables. I warmed oil between my palms and began working, starting gentle before applying deeper pressure. "Thomas is out of surgery," he said after several minutes of silence. "Prognosis is good. He'll recover." "That's wonderful." I worked a particularly stubborn knot near his shoulder blade, feeling it finally start to release. "Will he be safe? Will they go after him again?" "He's being transferred to a private facility under guard. His family is being moved to a secure location." Lucas exhaled slowly as I found another pressure point. "I take care of my people, Camilla. Always. I know you do." I moved lower, working the muscles along his spine. That's when I felt new damage, tissue that was hot to the touch, inflamed. I stopped, examining it more closely. "Lucas, what is this?" "Minor burn from today. I was close to the warehouse when it went off. Got hit by some debris. This is not minor. The area was at least 6 inches across, blistered and angry red." "Why didn't you say something? This needs medical attention." "It's fine. I cleaned it earlier." "It's not fine. Stay still." I went to my medical supplies, pulling out everything I'd need. The burn was 2nd degree at least, possibly verging on 3rd in a couple spots. I cleaned it carefully with antiseptic, applied specialized burn ointment, and covered it with proper bandaging. Lucas didn't make a sound through the process, even though I knew it had to hurt. When I finished, I stood looking down at him, this powerful man who'd somehow become central to my life, and felt something crack open in my chest. "You should have told me," I said quietly. "You should have let me help sooner." He turned his head to look at me, amber eyes serious. "I'm not used to having someone who wants to help. Most people in my life want something from me. You just want to make sure I'm okay." "Of course I do." I sat on the edge of the table, hand resting on his uninjured shoulder. "Lucas, I care about you. More than is probably smart or professional. But I do." He shifted, moving to sit up despite my protest. The sheet fell away, revealing the muscled expanse of his chest, the various scars I'd memorized over weeks of sessions. He reached for me, pulling me closer until I was standing between his knees. "I care about you too," he said, hands settling on my waist. "I've tried not to. Tried to keep this professional, maintain distance, but you're in my head constantly. I think about you when I should be focused on business. I worry about your safety. I want to know every detail of your day." My heart hammered against my ribs. "We can't do this. I'm your therapist. There are boundaries. We crossed those boundaries weeks ago, Camilla. We've just been pretending otherwise." His forehead rested against mine. "Tell me you don't feel this. Tell me I'm alone in it." I couldn't, because he wasn't alone. The connection between us had been building since that first rainy night, growing stronger with each session, each conversation, each moment of honesty between us. I'd been fighting it, clinging to professional ethics that felt increasingly meaningless when measured against what I actually felt. "I feel it," I admitted. "I've been feeling it for a while now." His hands tightened on my waist. "Then stop fighting me. Stop pretending this is just professional. What are you asking for?" "Everything." He pulled back enough to look at me directly. "I want you here, with me. Not as my therapist, though you can still work on me when I'm tense." His lips curved slightly. "I want you as my partner. Someone who knows what I am and chooses to stay anyway." The declaration should have terrified me. I was 26 years old, with a modest massage therapy practice and a sister in college. He was a crime boss with enemies who bombed warehouses and threatened people I loved. We existed in completely different worlds. But standing there in his arms, feeling the warmth of his skin against mine, Seeing vulnerability in eyes that were usually so controlled, I couldn't find the fear I should have felt, only certainty. "Okay," I whispered. "Okay?" He searched my face. "Camilla, do you understand what you're agreeing to?" "I'm agreeing to try. To see what this is between us without hiding behind professional boundaries anymore." I cupped his face between my hands. "I'm choosing you, Lucas. Even knowing what you do, what your world is like. I'm choosing you anyway." Something fierce and possessive flared in his expression. He pulled me forward, capturing my mouth in a kiss that burned away any remaining doubt. I melted into him, hands tangling in his hair, feeling months of denied attraction finally given permission to ignite. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, he pressed his forehead to mine again. "I'll protect you," he promised. "Whatever it takes, whoever I have to go through, I'll keep you safe." I know. I believed him. Maybe that made me naive, or reckless, or foolish. But I believed him anyway. We stayed like that for a long moment, just holding each other, before reality intruded. His phone rang, the sharp sound cutting through the intimacy. Lucas cursed softly in Italian before answering. The conversation was brief and tense. When he hung up, his expression had hardened back into the mask I recognized from business dealings. "I need to go handle something. Vincent will stay with you. Don't leave the property." He stood, pulling on his shirt carefully over the bandaged burn. "I'll be back before morning. Lucas, I know, but this can't wait." He kissed me again, quick and fierce. "Stay safe, Camilla. That's all I need from you tonight." Then he was gone, leaving me alone in the therapeutic room with the scent of massage oil and the taste of him still on my lips. I cleaned up mechanically, going through familiar motions while my mind spun through everything that had just happened. I'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. I'd admitted feelings that changed everything. I'd committed myself to a man whose world was built on violence and calculated risks. And despite every rational reason to regret it, all I felt was relief that I'd finally stopped lying to myself about what I wanted. Living in Lucas's world meant learning new rules. I discovered this over the following weeks as I integrated into his household. No longer a visiting therapist, but something far more permanent and complicated. The mansion became familiar territory. Each room memorized, each security checkpoint routine. What I didn't expect was discovering the depth of deception woven through Lucas's organization. It started with something small, a conversation I wasn't supposed to overhear. I'd been looking for Vincent to ask about grocery deliveries when I passed Lucas's office. The door stood slightly ajar, voices filtering through in hushed tones. I should have kept walking. Instead, I stopped. Joseph's been in contact with the Albanians again. The speaker was Franco Bellini, Lucas's second-in-command, a man I'd met several times during dinners. We intercepted communications 3 days ago. He's providing them with warehouse locations, shipment schedules. Silence followed. Then Lucas's voice, cold and measured. "Are you certain?" "Positive. We have phone records, encrypted messages that our tech people decoded. He's been feeding them information for at least 2 months, probably longer." Joseph Bellini, Franco's cousin, a man who'd worked for Lucas for years, who ate dinner at this table, who'd greeted me warmly when Lucas introduced us. A traitor. "Where is he now?" Lucas asked. "Still at the import office downtown. Doesn't know we're aware." Franco paused. "What do you want done?" The question hung heavy with implications. I pressed closer to the wall, heart hammering, knowing I should leave but unable to move. "Bring him here, tonight, quietly." Lucas's tone suggested this was a business matter, routine and inevitable. "I'll handle it personally." My stomach churned. Handle it personally. In Lucas's world, that meant violence, probably death. I'd known intellectually what he was, what he did. But knowing abstractly was different from hearing him order someone's execution in the same voice he used to ask me about my day. I retreated quickly, making it back to the therapeutic room before anyone saw me. My hands shook as I reorganized supplies that didn't need organizing, trying to process what I'd learned. Lucas found me there an hour later. He looked tired, tension carved into his features. "I need you to work on my neck," he said. "Migraine starting. Your hands are the only thing that helps." I prepared the room mechanically. going through familiar motions while my mind spun. Should I tell him I'd overheard? Pretend ignorance? The ethical quandary of treating someone who was about to harm another person twisted through my thoughts. He noticed my distraction immediately. Lucas was too observant to miss much. "What's wrong?" he asked as I worked oil into his shoulders. "Nothing." The lie tasted bitter. "Camilla." He turned his head to look at me. "Don't lie to me. What happened?" I took a breath. Made a choice. "I overheard your conversation with Franco. About Joseph." His expression shuddered. "How much did you hear?" "Everything. That he's been passing information to your enemies. That you're bringing him here tonight." I moved around to face him. "Lucas, what are you going to do to him? What needs to be done?" He sat up, sheet falling away. "Joseph betrayed everyone in this organization. His actions got Thomas nearly killed in that warehouse bombing. Men who trusted him, worked beside him for years. That betrayal demands consequences." "Consequences like what? Torture? Execution?" "Justice." His jaw set stubbornly. "In my world, betrayal is a death sentence. He knew the rules when he chose to break them. That's not justice. That's murder. Call it what you want. It's necessary." He stood, reaching for his shirt. "This isn't your world, Camilla. You don't understand how things work here. Then explain it to me." I grabbed his arm, forcing him to look at me. "Make me understand how killing someone is the right response." His eyes flashed with something between frustration and resignation. Joseph's betrayal endangered dozens of people. The information he provided led directly to attacks that cost injuries, property damage, financial losses. If I let that go unpunished, it signals weakness. Others will think betrayal carries no real cost. More people will die. So you kill one person to prevent others from betraying you. Exactly. No hesitation. No shame. That's how power works. Through fear and respect equally balanced. I wanted to argue more, to convince him there were other ways. But looking at his face, I realized he genuinely believed this was necessary. In his moral calculus, Joseph's death prevented future betrayals that would cost more lives. Brutal mathematics, but internally consistent. "I can't be here when it happens," I said finally. "I can't know the details." "You won't. Vincent will take you to visit Jenna tonight. Stay there until I call." His hand cupped my face. "I'm not asking you to approve, just to accept that this is who I am, what I do. I'm trying. It's just harder than I expected." "I know." He kissed my forehead. "But you're still here. That means something." Vincent drove me to Jenna's apartment that evening. She'd been begging me to visit for days, worried about how much time I spent at Lucas's property. When I showed up unannounced, she pulled me inside immediately. "Finally. I was starting to think he'd locked you in a tower somewhere." She studied my face. "You okay? You look stressed." "Long day." I sank onto her couch, grateful for the normalcy of her cluttered living space. "Can we just watch bad television and not talk about anything serious?" "Obviously. Wine first?" We spent 3 hours marathoning reality shows, drinking cheap wine, pretending my life hadn't become unrecognizable. Jenna didn't push for details, sensing I needed escape more than confession. Around 11, my phone buzzed. "Lucas, it's done. Vincent will bring you home when you're ready." Home. He called his property home, assuming I considered it mine too. The presumption should have annoyed me. Instead, it just felt accurate. I returned an hour later to find the mansion quiet. Lucas was in his study, staring at paperwork without really reading it. When I entered, he looked up with exhausted eyes. "Are you hurt?" I asked. "No, I'm fine." He leaned back in his chair. Joseph confessed. Gave names of other contacts within the Albanian organization. The information will help prevent future attacks. And then he faced consequences for his actions. His voice was flat, emotionless. "It's over. The threat he posed is eliminated." I crossed to him, standing beside his chair. His hands found my waist automatically, pulling me closer until I straddled his lap. We sat like that in silence, my forehead resting against his, both processing the divide between our worlds. "I don't know how to reconcile the man who's gentle with me with the man who does what you did tonight," I admitted quietly. "They're the same man, Camilla. I protect what's mine with whatever means necessary." That includes being ruthless with threats and careful with you." His fingers traced patterns on my back. "I can't be someone I'm not. But I can promise that my violence is always calculated, never random. I don't hurt people for pleasure." It wasn't reassurance exactly, but it was honesty. I appreciated that more than comfortable lies. Over the following days, I noticed changes in the organization. Men who'd been casual in their duties became more precise. Conversations that had been relaxed turned guarded. Word of Joseph's fate had spread through silent networks, delivering Lucas's message about the cost of betrayal. The effect was undeniable. Lucas's authority solidified. People moved with renewed respect, wariness tempering familiarity. I watched it happen while maintaining my own careful neutrality, neither approving nor condemning, just existing in this strange space between worlds. Thomas Santini was released from the hospital 3 weeks after the bombing. Lucas arranged his transport to a private rehabilitation facility, covered all medical costs, provided housing for his family. The generosity seemed at odds with the brutality I knew he was capable of. But I was learning that Lucas contained multitudes, ruthless with enemies, loyal to his people. I visited Thomas once, bringing flowers and updates about the organization. His wife thanked me with tears in her eyes, grateful for Lucas's care. The conversation twisted something uncomfortable in my chest. These were good people, caught in a dangerous world, dependent on a man who ruled through calculated violence. But that same violence kept them safe, provided for their families, ensured their children had opportunities. The moral complexity exhausted me some days. Other days, I just accepted it as reality and focused on the parts I could control. Megan called weekly, her security detail blending into campus life so seamlessly she claimed to forget they existed. She'd accepted that her sister was involved with someone powerful and dangerous, processing it with surprising pragmatism for a 20-year-old. We didn't pretend the risk was gone. We just stopped living like the next knock would be a war. Megan kept the campus number on speed dial. Vincent kept the quiet shadow 2 steps behind her. "Are you happy?" she asked during one call. The question caught me off guard. That's complicated. Is it though? Do you feel happy when you're with him? I thought about Lucas's rare smiles, the way his body relaxed under my hands, how he listened when I talked about opening my own spa someday, the intensity of being known so completely by someone who saw my strengths and flaws equally. "Yes," I admitted. "I'm happy. Then the rest is just details." Classic Megan logic, cutting through complications to simple truth. A month after Joseph's death, Lucas came to find me in the therapeutic room where I'd been working on inventory. He looked different, energized rather than exhausted. The Albanian organization reached out. They want to negotiate. He leaned against the doorframe. Apparently losing their informant and facing our increased security measures has been costly. They're proposing territorial agreements. That's good, right? Less conflict? Potentially. Or it's a trap to get me in a vulnerable position. He smiled slightly. But I think it's genuine. They've lost enough resources that continued war isn't sustainable. So what happens now? Now I negotiate from a position of strength. Set terms that protect my interests and people. He moved closer. And then, if we reach agreement, things get quieter. Less danger for everyone involved. The prospect of reduced threat felt almost foreign after weeks of heightened security. Would that mean Megan could go back to normal campus life? Eventually, yes. And you could reopen Serenity if you wanted. Resume your regular practice. His hands settled on my hips. Though I'd selfishly prefer keeping you here most of the time. I want both, I said honestly. My practice matters to me, but being here, with you, matters too. Then we'll make that work. He kissed me, slow and thorough. I'm good at making things work when properly motivated. I believed him. Lucas was nothing if not determined when he wanted something. And apparently, he wanted me integrated into his life permanently. Professional practice and all. The negotiations happened over the following week. I wasn't present for them, but Lucas briefed me afterward. Territory divisions, trade route agreements, shared intelligence about mutual enemies. The Albanian leadership agreed to terms that heavily favored Lucas, acknowledging his stronger position. When the final agreement was signed, the relief throughout the organization was palpable. Men smiled more. Tension that had been constant background noise eased. Thomas returned home from rehabilitation. Megan's security detail scaled back to minimal observation. Life didn't become normal. I'd learned that normal was relative in Lucas's world. But it became steadier, less chaotic. I split time between the mansion and Serenity, rebuilding my practice while maintaining my relationship with Lucas. Jenna resumed her receptionist duties, asking fewer questions about my personal life after I assured her I was fine. Lucas and I found rhythm in the complexity. Mornings at Serenity, afternoons with regular clients, evenings at his property where I'd work on him in the therapeutic room before spending nights in his bedroom. Weekends varied, sometimes visiting Megan on campus, sometimes attending business dinners where I learned to navigate conversations with dangerous people over expensive wine. The life I'd built felt improbable from the outside. Probably appeared insane to anyone who knew the full truth. But from inside it, wrapped in Lucas's careful protection and genuine affection, it felt oddly sustainable. Not perfect, never simple, but mine in ways I couldn't have predicted that rainy night when he'd first walked into Serenity. Lucas brought up the idea over breakfast on a Saturday morning. We'd fallen into routines over the past couple months. Small domestic rituals that made his mansion feel less like a fortress and more like home. Saturday mornings meant coffee on the terrace overlooking the gardens, sunlight filtering through trees that had turned gold with autumn. "I want you to consider something," he said, setting down his coffee cup. "Moving here permanently." I'd been expecting this conversation eventually, but it still caught me unprepared. I practically live here already. Practically isn't the same as officially. Your apartment downtown is still your primary residence. Half your clothes are there, your mail goes there. Legally, it's where you live. He leaned forward, elbows on the table. "I want to change that. I want you here completely." That's a big step. I wrapped my hands around my own mug, needing something to hold. "What about Serenity? My practice?" "Keep it. Maintain your regular schedule there during the week. I'm not asking you to give up your work, Camilla. Just to acknowledge that this is where you belong when you're not working." The possessiveness in his statement should have triggered resistance. Instead, it just felt true. I did belong here, in this house with its armed guards and security cameras, with this man who ruled a criminal empire, but made me coffee exactly how I liked it. "What would that look like practically?" I asked. "Your things moved here. Address changed to this property. Your room becomes officially yours, not a guest space." He paused. "And I'd like you to meet more of my business associates formally, as my partner, rather than my therapist." Partner. The word carried weight beyond simple cohabitation. In Lucas's world, presenting someone as a partner meant claiming them publicly, announcing to allies and enemies alike that they were under his protection. It meant visibility I'd been avoiding. "That makes me a bigger target," I said carefully. "It makes you untouchable." His eyes held mine. "Right now, people know you're important to me. But there's ambiguity about the relationship. That ambiguity creates vulnerability. If I claim you formally, it sends a clear message. Harming you means declaring war on me personally. No one wants that." The twisted logic actually made sense. Being obviously important to Lucas was safer than being questionably important. "What does Megan think about all this?" I spoke with her last week when she visited. She said, and I quote, "If my sister's going to date a gangster, at least make sure she's safe." His mouth quirked. "Your sister is remarkably practical." That sounded like Megan. "When would this happen?" "Whenever you're ready. Today, next month. I'm not rushing you." He reached across the table, fingers finding mine. "But I'd like an answer eventually. I need to know if you're committed to building something permanent with me." The vulnerability beneath his confident exterior surprised me. Lucas, who commanded absolute loyalty from dozens of people, who made decisions that shaped illegal operations across the city, needed reassurance from a massage therapist who'd stumbled into his world by accident. "I need time to think," I said honestly. "Not because I'm uncertain about us, but because this is permanent in ways that scare me. Once I'm officially living here, officially your partner, that's it. There's no going back to my old life." "No," he agreed. "There isn't." But that life was lonely, wasn't it? Working 80 hours a week, barely making rent, dreaming about a spa you couldn't afford. Here, you have stability, resources, someone who prioritizes your safety and happiness. He wasn't wrong. My life before Lucas had been exhausting and financially precarious. But it had also been mine, built on choices I controlled. This new life offered security at the cost of autonomy. The trade-off felt necessary, but acknowledging that came with grief for what I was leaving behind. "Give me a week," I said. "Let me sit with it. Talk to Jenna and Megan. Make sure I'm choosing this clearly. Take 2 weeks if you need them. But Camilla?" He squeezed my hand. "I love you. I'm not good at saying it. And I know it's complicated given everything else, but I do. That's not conditional on whether you move in. It just is." The declaration stole my breath. We'd circled around the sentiment for weeks, implied it through actions and commitment, but never said the actual words. Hearing them now, in the morning sunlight with coffee cooling between us, felt simultaneously perfect and terrifying. "I love you too," I whispered. "That's why this is so hard, because I want to choose you, but I'm scared of losing myself in the process. Then we'll make sure that doesn't happen. Your practice, your friends, your relationship with Megan, those all stay. You stay you, Camilla, just living here instead of that apartment with the broken heating." I laughed, despite myself. The heating really was terrible. "Okay, 2 weeks. Then I'll give you an answer." He stood, moving around the table to pull me up into his arms. We stood like that for several minutes, just holding each other while the morning warmed around us. Whatever I decided, this moment felt important, a marker of transition between who I'd been and who I was becoming. The following week passed in careful contemplation. I talked to Jenna over dinner, explaining Lucas's proposal without revealing details about his business. She listened with the focused attention that had made her my closest friend. "Do you trust him?" she asked finally. "With my life, yes. With my heart, yes. With making decisions that could hurt other people in ways I don't agree with, that's more complicated. But you knew what he was when you fell in love with him." "I did. I just need to decide if I can live with that long term." She reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "Then here's my advice as someone who loves you. Don't make this about him or his world. Make it about whether you can look at yourself in the mirror and recognize who you are. If living with him means losing that, walk away. If you can integrate his world into yours while staying true to yourself, then maybe it works." Her wisdom cut through my circular thinking. The question wasn't whether I could accept Lucas's life. It was whether I could maintain my identity within it. I spent time at Serenity, working with regular clients, reconnecting with the professional identity I'd built before Lucas. Mrs. Henderson came in for her shoulder treatment. Mr. Park needed his chronic back pain addressed. Young athletes sought recovery therapy. These people depended on me, trusted my expertise. That mattered independent of anything happening in my personal life. I also attended one of Lucas's business dinners, this time paying closer attention to the dynamics. The restaurant was upscale, private room in the back where cameras couldn't reach. 6 men besides Lucas, all dressed in expensive clothes, speaking carefully about territories and shipments and agreements. Their wives or girlfriends sat at the far end of the table, talking about shopping and vacations and other safe topics. I watched them, these women who'd chosen or been chosen for lives built around dangerous men. Some seemed content, others resigned. None appeared unhappy exactly, just adapted to circumstances they'd accepted as unchangeable. Lucas noticed my observation. During a break between courses, he leaned close. "You don't have to become like them. I'm not asking you to sit quietly and pretend to care about designer bags. What are you asking me to do at these things? Be yourself. If you want to participate in business discussions, do it. If you'd rather talk to the other women about massage therapy techniques, that's fine too. I'm not trying to shape you into someone else." His answer reassured me more than any promise of safety could have. He genuinely seemed to want me as I was, not as some idealized partner who fit neatly into his world. Megan visited that weekend, ostensibly to pick up textbooks she'd left in her guest room, but really to check on me. We sat in the library while Lucas handled business calls in his office. "So, he proposed moving in officially?" she asked, curled up on the leather couch with tea. How did you know? He told me last time I visited that he planned to ask. Wanted my blessing first, apparently. She rolled her eyes affectionately. Like I could stop you if you wanted to do it anyway. Your opinion matters to me. I know. That's why I told him the truth. That you're happier now than I've seen you in years. That before Lucas, you were exhausted and stressed constantly. That whatever he is and whatever he does, he takes care of you in ways that count. Her assessment aligned with my own observations. Lucas had been attentive, protective, without being controlling, supportive of my work and friendships. The foundation seemed solid despite the questionable circumstances surrounding it. But, I prompted, hearing the unspoken caveat, but I worry what happens if you try to leave. Men like Lucas don't handle rejection well. Once you're in completely, you need to be sure, because extracting yourself later could be dangerous. She wasn't wrong. I'd seen how Lucas responded to betrayal, the cold calculation with which he eliminated threats. If our relationship ended badly, would that same ruthlessness turn toward me? I trust him not to hurt me, I said carefully. Even if things ended, then that's what matters. Just promise you'll keep your own money, maintain your practice, stay connected to people outside his world. Don't let yourself become completely dependent. Sound advice from my 20-year-old sister, who was proving to have excellent instincts about complicated relationships. The 2 weeks passed quickly. By the end, I'd reached clarity that surprised me with its simplicity. I wanted to be with Lucas. I wanted to build a life that incorporated his world while maintaining my own. I wanted the security and partnership he offered, despite the complications. On the 14th day, I found him in his study reviewing financial documents. He looked up when I entered, and I saw hope mixed with apprehension in his expression. I have an answer, I said. And? Yes. I'll move in officially. Be your partner publicly. Build something permanent with you. I moved around the desk to stand beside his chair. But I have conditions. Relief washed over his features. Name them. I keep my apartment for 6 months as a safety net, just in case. I maintain complete control over my practice and finances from it. I continue seeing Jenna and Megan regularly without security monitoring our conversations. And if I ever want out, you let me leave without retaliation. He considered each condition carefully. The apartment is fine, though I'll pay the rent since you'll barely be there. Control over your practice was never in question. Security won't monitor your personal conversations unless there's an active threat. And if you want to leave, I'll let you go. He paused. Though I'll try like hell to convince you to stay first. Fair. I sat on the edge of his desk. When do we start moving my things? Whenever you want. Today, if possible. He pulled me onto his lap, arms wrapping around my waist. Thank you for choosing this. For choosing me. I kissed him, slow and thorough. Thank you for making it possible to choose. For respecting what I need. That afternoon, Vincent and 2 other men helped me collect belongings from my apartment. It felt surreal. Packing up the small space that had been home for 3 years, knowing I was moving into a mansion with armed security and my boyfriend who happened to run a criminal organization. Jenna came by to help, hugging me tight before we started loading boxes. You're sure about this? As sure as I can be about anything. Then I'm happy for you. She held me at arm's length, studying my face. You deserve someone who treats you well, gangster or not. We worked through the afternoon, sorting what to bring and what to donate. By evening, my apartment looked bare, just furniture left behind for whoever took over the lease. I stood in the doorway for a last look, saying goodbye to the life I'd built alone. Lucas was waiting when Vincent drove me back to the mansion, my belongings already being unpacked by staff I'd insisted handle it carefully. He took my hand, leading me upstairs to what he now called our room. My clothes hung in the massive closet beside his. My books lined shelves next to his Italian volumes. My essential oils sat on the bathroom counter next to his cologne. What do you think? He asked. I looked around at the physical manifestation of our merged lives, at the way my presence had altered his space. I think it looks like home. His smile was worth every complicated choice that had led here. We spent that evening on the terrace, watching sunset paint the sky gold and orange, talking about plans for the future, expanding my practice, possibly into the spa I'd always dreamed of, Lucas's legitimate business ventures that could use therapeutic services for employees, Megan's graduation next year, and where we'd host the celebration. Normal conversations about normal things, despite nothing about our situation being remotely normal. But that had become our pattern. Finding ordinary moments within extraordinary circumstances, building something real in the spaces between Lucas's dangerous business and my attempts to maintain ethical boundaries. Later, lying in bed with his arms around me, I felt the weight of my decision settle into something like peace. I'd chosen this path with clear eyes and full knowledge of what it meant. Whatever came next, I'd face it as Lucas's partner, officially claimed and publicly acknowledged as belonging to this world I'd accidentally entered months ago in a massage room during a storm. 3 weeks after I'd officially moved in, the peace we'd built shattered. It happened on a Friday night when I was supposed to be working late at Serenity. Lucas had a business dinner scheduled, something routine with shipping contractors according to his calendar. I'd planned to finish inventory, maybe grab takeout with Jenna afterward, normal evening activities that felt increasingly precious. Instead, I received a call from Vincent at 6:30. "Miss Turner, there's a situation. I'm sending a car for you immediately." My stomach dropped. What kind of situation? "Mr. Ricchetti needs you at the property. It's urgent." The line went dead. I told Jenna something had come up, locked Serenity's front door, and waited outside in growing darkness. Storm clouds gathered overhead, heavy with the promise of rain. The first drops began falling as Vincent's car pulled up. He drove faster than usual, jaw tight with tension. When I tried asking questions, he just repeated that Lucas wanted me home. The use of that word, home, might have warmed me under different circumstances. Tonight, it just amplified my fear. The mansion blazed with lights when we arrived. Cars I didn't recognize filled the circular drive. Armed men stood at strategic points, more than normal, all on high alert. Vincent escorted me inside quickly, hand hovering near his concealed weapon. Lucas met me in the foyer. Relief flashed across his face when he saw me, quickly replaced by grim determination. "You're safe." "Good. What's happening?" I searched his expression for clues. "The O'Sullivans broke the peace agreement. They hit 2 of our transport vehicles tonight, killed 3 drivers." His voice was ice-cold fury. "They're pushing for war again, and this time they're not being subtle about it." The news landed like a physical blow. Men were dead. The careful stability we'd built was crumbling. Why would they break the agreement? They negotiated in good faith. New leadership. Patrick O'Sullivan died last week, heart attack. His son Ryan is taking over, and apparently he thinks his father was weak for making peace with us. Lucas's hands clenched. He wants to prove himself by taking territory we control. So what happens now? Now I respond proportionally. Make it clear that breaking agreements with me costs more than they're willing to pay. He pulled me closer, lips brushing my forehead. "But you're not staying here tonight. It's not safe if they escalate further." "Where am I going?" "Safe house outside the city. Vincent will take you. Megan's already being collected from campus. You'll both stay there until this is resolved." It wasn't a replay of the warehouse fire. It was escalation. A second attack, deliberate and louder, the kind of move you make when you want the city to hear you. Whatever had burned weeks ago had been a warning. This was a declaration. Fear morphed into anger. "You're sending me away while you handle this alone. I'm protecting you while I do what needs to be done. There's a difference." His tone brooked no argument. "This is going to get ugly, Camilla. I don't want you anywhere near it. I'm not a child to be hidden away. No, you're the person I love most in this world, which makes you my greatest vulnerability." His grip tightened. "Please, don't fight me on this. I need to know you're safe so I can focus on ending this quickly." The raw emotion in his voice cut through my resistance. He was terrified for me, even while projecting controlled fury about everything else. "How long?" "A week at most, probably less." He kissed me properly then, desperate and claiming. "I'll call every day. Vincent stays with you. If anything feels wrong, if anyone approaches the safe house, you run." "Understood." I nodded against his chest, breathing in his scent, trying to memorize this moment in case it was the last. The thought terrified me more than the threats from the O'Sullivans. "Promise me you'll be careful, that you won't take unnecessary risks. I promise to survive this and come back to you." His forehead pressed against mine. "Now go." Vincent's waiting. The safe house turned out to be a cabin 40 minutes outside the city, nestled in woods that provided natural concealment. Megan arrived shortly after me, escorted by 2 security guards who positioned themselves outside. My sister looked scared but trying to hide it. "This is really happening again," she said, sinking onto the couch. I thought the agreement meant it was over. So did I. I moved to the kitchen, needing to do something with my hands. But apparently peace doesn't last when leadership changes. We spent that night talking about everything except the danger, finding comfort in normalcy. Megan told me about classes and a guy she'd started dating. I described expanding Serenity's services, the spa I still dreamed of opening. We watched movies on the cabin's television, drank wine Vincent had stocked in the fridge, pretended we weren't waiting for news about whether the man I loved would survive the night. Lucas called at midnight. "I'm fine. Situation is contained for now. Sleep if you can." "What did you do?" "What was necessary. I'll tell you details when you're home." A pause. "I love you, Camila. That hasn't changed." "I love you too. Please stay safe." The next 3 days passed in anxious limbo. Lucas called twice daily with brief updates. The O'Sullivans had suffered significant losses in retaliation. Ryan O'Sullivan himself was reconsidering his aggressive stance. Negotiations for a new agreement were underway, this time with stronger enforcement provisions. Megan and I developed routines. Morning runs through the woods with security trailing at a distance. Afternoons reading or talking. Evenings cooking dinner together, pretending this was a vacation rather than protective custody. My sister never complained, just rolled with circumstances she couldn't control. On the 4th day, Jenna called. "Cam, there are men watching Serenity. They've been there since yesterday. I'm freaked out. Ice flooded my veins." "What kind of men?" "I don't know. Just guys in a car across the street. They're not hiding it. It's like they want me to notice." Her voice shook. "Should I call the police?" "No. Lock up immediately and go to your sister's place. Don't go home tonight." I looked at Vincent, who was already on his phone coordinating response. "I'll handle this." After she hung up, I called Lucas. He answered on the first ring. "What's wrong?" "Someone's watching Serenity." Jenna just called terrified. "What if they hurt her to get to me?" "They won't. I'm sending people now." He was already moving. I could hear car doors and engines. "Camilla, listen carefully. This is them testing boundaries, seeing if they can pressure me through you. It won't work. You can't know that." "Yes, I can. Because I'm about to make it abundantly clear what happens to anyone who threatens what's mine." The deadly promise in his voice should have frightened me. Instead, I felt grimly reassured. Vincent's phone rang. He listened briefly, then spoke. "Sir, we have eyes on Serenity. 2 vehicles, 4 men total. They're just observing." "Contain them," Lucas ordered. "I want to talk to whoever sent them. Alive if possible." The next hours were tense. Vincent received periodic updates while Megan and I tried to distract ourselves with cooking. Eventually, Lucas called back. Situation resolved. The men were O'Sullivans, sent to intimidate. They've been strongly discouraged from continuing surveillance of anyone connected to me. His tone suggested violence I didn't want details about. "Jenna's safe. Your practice is safe. You can stop worrying. When can we come home?" "Tomorrow. Ryan O'Sullivan has agreed to renegotiation. Meeting's set for tomorrow afternoon. After that, assuming it goes well, the threat level drops significantly. Relief made me dizzy. Thank you for protecting her, for protecting all of us." "Always." The meeting happened at a neutral location, witnessed by representatives from other families who had interest in maintaining territorial peace. Lucas briefed me afterward, voice tight with barely controlled anger. Ryan's young and stupid, but not suicidal. He agreed to honor his father's original terms with additional penalties if breached again. He also agreed to pay restitution for the drivers killed and damages from the attacks. Lucas rubbed his eyes tiredly. "It's done. We're back to cautious peace." That evening, he came to collect us personally. When I saw him standing in the cabin doorway, exhaustion written in every line of his body, but eyes lighting up when they found mine, something in my chest cracked open. I crossed the distance and wrapped my arms around him, not caring that Megan and Vincent were watching. "I missed you," I whispered against his neck. "I missed you more." His arms tightened. "Let's go home." The drive back felt different somehow, weighted with understanding about what our life together actually meant. Peace was always temporary. Threats would continue emerging. Lucas would respond with calculated violence, and I would have to accept that while maintaining my own moral boundaries. But driving through the night with his hand in mine, knowing he'd moved heaven and earth to keep me safe, I realized something important. I loved him not despite what he was, but including all of it. The dangerous man and the gentle partner existed simultaneously, and both were real. Later, in our bedroom with rain finally falling outside, Lucas held me close. "I need you to understand something. This life I live, the choices I make, they'll always carry risk. I can minimize it, manage it, but never eliminate it completely." I know. I traced the new bruise on his ribs, evidence of how close he'd come to real danger. But I'm choosing to stay anyway. Choosing you anyway. His kiss tasted like relief and promise, and the faint copper of blood he'd probably shed in my defense. Then we'll make it work. Together. 6 months after the O'Sullivan confrontation, life found new patterns. The second peace agreement held, this time backed by enough mutual respect and fear to make it sustainable. Lucas's organization stabilized, territories clearly defined, operations running smoothly. Thomas Santini returned to active duty, scarred but functional. Megan finished her sophomore year with excellent grades. Jenna expanded her role at Serenity, taking over more administrative duties so I could focus on treatments. And I learned to exist in both worlds simultaneously. Mornings at Serenity working with clients who knew nothing about Lucas, beyond the vague mention of a boyfriend in real estate. Afternoons at the mansion, integrated into rhythms of a household that ran on strict security protocols and unspoken hierarchies. Evenings with Lucas, where we carved out normalcy through shared meals and quiet conversations about futures we might actually survive to see. The transformation wasn't dramatic or sudden. I didn't wake up one day comfortable with what Lucas did. Instead, acceptance accumulated gradually, through hundreds of small moments. Watching him coordinate security for Thomas's daughter's wedding. Seeing him pay college tuition for the children of men who died working for him. Understanding that loyalty in his world meant something tangible. Binding. Almost sacred. "You've changed," Jenna observed one afternoon while we inventoried supplies at Serenity. "Not bad, just different." "How so?" "More confident. Less worried about what people think. You used to apologize for taking up space. Now you just exist in it." She studied me with the perception that came from years of friendship. "Living with a crime boss agrees with you, apparently." I laughed despite myself. "That's one way to put it." "Are you happy, though?" "Really happy." The question deserved honest consideration. "Yes. It's complicated and sometimes scary and definitely not what I imagined for my life. But yes, I'm happy." Lucas asked me to marry him on a Tuesday evening in October. Nothing dramatic, no grand romantic gesture. We were in the therapeutic room after I'd worked through tension in his shoulders from a long day of meetings. He pulled on his shirt, turned to face me and said simply, "Marry me." I blinked, certain I'd misheard. "What?" "Marry me, Camila. Make this official in every way possible." His hands found mine, fingers intertwining. "I'm not good at romance or pretty words, but I love you. I want to build a future with you. I want legal recognition that you're mine and I'm yours." That's the most unromantic proposal I've ever heard, but I was smiling, heart racing, feeling certainty settle into my bones. "Yes, I'll marry you." Relief transformed his features. He pulled me close, kissing me with an intensity that made the world narrow to just us. When we broke apart, he rested his forehead against mine. "I promise to keep you safe, to respect your work and independence, to never ask you to compromise who you are. I promise to stay, to choose you every day even when it's difficult, to build something real in the middle of all this chaos." We told Megan first, during her visit the following weekend. She squealed with genuine excitement, hugging us both, already planning wedding details we hadn't considered. Jenna cried happy tears when I showed her the ring Lucas had produced the next day, a simple platinum band with a single diamond. Understated but clearly expensive, like everything in his world. The wedding happened 2 months later. Small ceremony with only people who mattered. Megan as my maid of honor. Franco Bellini as Lucas's best man. Vincent and the core security team standing as witnesses. Jenna and Thomas's family filling out the small chapel Lucas had arranged. No press, no publicity. Just vows exchanged between two people who'd found each other in unlikely circumstances. I, Camilla, take you, Lucas, as my partner in all things. I promise to love you despite and because of everything you are, to build a life that honors both your world and mine. I, Lucas, take you, Camilla, as my wife and equal. I promise to protect you while respecting your strength, to value your presence as the greatest gift I've received. Simple words that carried weight of everything we'd survived together, every choice that had led to this moment. When he kissed me as my husband, it felt like sealing a promise we'd actually been making for months. One therapeutic session at a time. Life after the wedding settled into comfortable permanence. I kept Serenity, now expanding to include yoga classes and nutritional counseling. Lucas supported the growth, providing capital and business advice while maintaining distance from day-to-day operations. It remained mine, a piece of identity separate from being his wife. We talked about children eventually, though both agreed to wait a few years. Megan graduated, moved into her own apartment with security Lucas provided, but disguised as a building amenity. Jenna met someone, a graphic designer with no idea about my complicated family connections. Thomas's youngest started college on a full scholarship Lucas had arranged anonymously. The complexity never disappeared. Lucas still made decisions I didn't agree with, still navigated a world built on violence and careful negotiation. But he kept his promise about transparency, briefing me on situations that might affect our life, respecting when I chose to distance myself from certain operations. And I found peace in the balance, spending mornings with clients who needed healing touch, afternoons managing the spa expansion I'd always dreamed of, evenings with the man who'd somehow become my anchor in chaos. We built something sustainable in the spaces between danger and normalcy, neither fully legitimate nor entirely criminal, just two people carving out room to breathe. One evening, almost a year after the wedding, I found Lucas on the terrace watching sunset paint the sky in shades of amber and gold. I settled beside him, his arm coming around my waist automatically. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked quietly. "Choosing this life? Sometimes I wonder what my life would look like if I'd said no that first night you came to Serenity. If I'd refused to see you again after realizing what you were." I leaned against his shoulder. "But I don't regret choosing you. This is complicated and sometimes frightening. But it's real. And it's mine. Ours," he corrected softly. "Ours," I agreed. We watched the light fade into twilight, comfortable in silence that no longer needed filling. Somewhere in the distance, security rotations changed shifts. Inside, Vincent coordinated tomorrow's schedule. Life continued in its strange rhythm of criminal operations and domestic routine, danger and safety existing simultaneously. I'd stopped trying to reconcile the contradictions. This was simply the reality I'd chosen. Accepting Lucas meant accepting everything that came with him. The man who touched me gently and ordered violence with equal conviction, who protected everyone under his care with ruthless dedication, who'd somehow made space for a massage therapist to exist authentically while building empire on foundations I'd never fully condone. Love in his world looked different from anything I'd imagined. But looking at him in the fading light, feeling safe and seen and valued despite everything, I knew I'd made the right choice. We'd built something worth protecting, worth fighting for. Not perfect, never simple, but undeniably ours.